All right, everybody. Cinephile Mike is here, and it is episode 25 of Oscar Rewind Season 2, my bi-weekly series of videos dropping every Tuesday and Friday, where I revisit the films that reflect the work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. I dig deep into those IMDb profiles, and my hope is that you will discover a new, older favorite, or maybe revisit something you haven't seen in a while. As always, I'll be discussing the Oscar connection, awards history for the respective film, critical response, box office, and as always, these reviews are spoiler free. Before we jump in, quick plug, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, like the video, hit subscribe to the channel because there's going to be so much great stuff coming that you don't want to miss, both on Rewind and elsewhere, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So, welcome to June. New month, new theme, and this month is Director Month. We will be looking at the remaining directors who were nominated for the Oscar for Best Director that I haven't gotten to yet, and those directors who were nominated this year for directing nominated animated shorts or documentaries. And given the, well, mediocre ending we had to Actor Month, sorry Chalamet, but that Reitman film, again, painful. So I wanted to start on a brighter side and maybe a bit of a cheat because this is a TV movie, TV documentary, but we are today looking at the British Broadcasting Corporation, or as we lovingly know it, the BBC. They made this documentary a grand night in the story of Aardman. Released on Boxing Day, December 26th, 2015, the film was a celebration of the 40 years of the Oscar winning Aardman Studios, which has 4 wins out of 7 nominations. Now, as this is a TV film, which, yes, it's a bit of a cheat, but, we're going to go with it. There's no box office information for me to talk about. I did try to see if I could get some viewership information, maybe how many people watched it on that night, but the BBC is very mum about releasing that data, so I could not find it. I did check Rotten Tomatoes because sometimes these TV movies, TV documentaries do have critical ratings, audience responses. This one does not. So we're going to have to end that there. So let me talk about why this film is here. Well, yes, we know that Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, was nominated. And the person who directed this documentary, Grand Day In, is the current creative director of our favorite inventor and his best mate, Wallace and Gromit, Merlin Crossingham, who earned his first Oscar nomination this year for co-directing Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. Now, the documentary is really a wonderful exploration of the company and where they have been. And at this point, it was 40 years. I mean, now it's 50. And within a brief 1 hour, the film really goes back to the beginning and tells how the two young animators, David Sproxton and Peter Lord, met and began animating. We visit their studios, which started and continue to be housed in Bristol, England. Their earliest creation, which I learned about in this, was the character that would give the company their name. It was Aardman, a cartoon series about an incompetent superhero who was half Superman, half Aardvark, and so they put that together. And then when they decided to create a company, that was the basis they went with after this cartoon debuted in 1972 as part of the BBC show Vision On. Now, about 5 years later, after they discovered the joys of working with plasticine, they created Morph, who also started to pop up in British television before spawning into his own show, Amazing Adventures of Morph, which set an early basis for the delightful Shaun the Sheep with dialogue-free animation. Now, from its earliest days of Morph up to the as yet to be released film, well, as of that year, the documentary chronicles from Aardman to Early Man. Fitting. Obviously, we've had that in other projects since, but we really get to go behind the scenes about many of the films that really have entertained us for all these years. Among these, we will learn about how Nick Park came to work for Aardman, which led to the initial, believe it or not, 6-year journey to make the first Wallace and Gromit short, A Grand Day Out, which would go on to be nominated for an Oscar and lose to its creator, Nick Park, for another Aardman project. We learn about how they would go on to partner with DreamWorks to create to this day, I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe it is still the most successful stop motion film of Chicken Run and its influence on the Oscars and suggest where they will go After inspiring so many years with sharp British humor, physical comedy, and creations you just want to hug. And all of this is framed while Wallace and Gromit shift in their armchairs, watching it all play out. While Wallace is, Gromit is having a different experience. Look, in this documentary, it's short, but Crossingham has really created a wonderful love letter to his place of employment. He merges multiple sources, including clips from the shorts and the feature films, old photos from Sproxton and Lord's early days. He incorporates news footage and multiple talking head interviews with the many individuals behind the scenes. Get to them in a moment. Look, I have to say, David R. James, the editor, really keeps things moving along. And when you hear people speaking about the magic and the humor of Aardman, it's absolutely infectious. And amongst the many stars who have lent their voices to Aardman creations that chime in are we have the OG Wallace, the late great Peter Sallis, majority of the actors who have since gone on to be amongst all of the Harry Potter plan with David Tennant, Martin Freeman, Timothy Spall, Bill Nighy. We have talking heads from Hugh Grant, Jane Horax, and Anne Reed. We also get to hear a lot from Crossingham himself, as well as the creative director of Shaun the Sheep, Richard Starzak, and obviously plenty from Nick Park himself, along with David Sproxton and Peter Lord. Now, we also get to hear, it's interesting the impact that it had overseas with directors such as Terry Gilliam, who loved to say he emphasized the point how much he hated Aardman because of how successful they were, with an ear to ear grin. Matt Groening, who talked about the impact and inspiration on The Simpsons, including the episode that he got to guest star on as himself. John Lasseter, who at the time was the chief creative officer of Pixar. Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the CEO of DreamWorks at the time. All of this in addition to others. And I would be remiss to mention all of this story, the whole thing narrated from top to bottom, is lovingly told through the delightful intonation of Julie Walters. Probably my biggest complaint with this documentary is one, I wish it chronicled up to today, not just 2015. And also, it wasn't long enough. I would have spent more time going into how these films came to be, the company came to be, almost so that I want to try to get to Bristol when I'm in London this summer. Well, even the Aardman films, I'll have to say, there are some films that are not necessarily desirable for me. There's a couple that I'm kind of like, eh, I'm not going to spoil them here. You probably have your own. But look, there's still something in them that makes me smile. So maybe perhaps I'm a little biased when say here that A Grand Night in the story of Aardman is a 5-star documentary. Shocker. But, and this one is this is a short review to kickstart our new theme month, which makes me want to go back and do an Aardman rewatch. Might make you want to do the same. If you would like to watch the documentary, you can find it on the Daily Motion's website. You can Google search the film and the link will pop up. Although I will say, way too many ad interruptions. I mean, I'm fine with streaming and ads, but this was like 90 seconds every maybe 5 to 7 minutes. But anyway, that aside, it does not mean that the information is not great. All right. So that's where you have it. We're going to start strong with this 5-star documentary as we kick off Director Month. Hope you enjoyed. As always, if you like what you heard here, please click that button, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, spread the word. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd. Find lots of great additional cinematic goodness on my website, including the up-and-coming Tribeca Film Festival. Yes. Head on over to cinephilemike.com for all that. All right. Happy watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.